At Great Heights Academy, a prestigious high school in the heart of Ikoyi, Lagos, a girl called Amarachi Okeke walks confidently into the school compound. Her natural hair is held in two buns, and her uniform is perfect. Her every move commands attention, and her group of friends follows her like lapdogs. Olumide Adebayo, on the other hand, is a world apart. His uniform, though neatly ironed, is slightly faded. It's clear he comes from a modest background. He avoids eye contact as he finds his way through the crowd, clutching his books tightly. Amarachi notices him and pouts. "Olumide, aren't you going to greet your queen?" she calls out mockingly. Olumide hesitates but eventually mutters, "Good morning, Amarachi." "Good morning who?" Amarachi snaps. "Is that how you address someone like me?" Her friends laugh as Amarachi continues to humiliate Olumide in front of the crowd. Later in the day, Olumide returns home to his loving mother, Yetunde, who works tirelessly as a nurse to provide for their family. His father, a retired civil servant, spends his days chatting with his friends about his past glories despite the challenges. Their home is filled with warmth and hope. Amarachi, on the other hand, returns to a cold mansion in an exclusive estate where her parents are too busy with their business empire to notice her. Her mother, Nkechi, pressures her to maintain appearances, while her father, Chief Okeke, remains emotionally distant. During a group assignment in biology class, Olumide is paired with Amarachi. She instantly dismisses his ideas, mocking his small village brain. When the teacher praises Olumide's detailed diagrams later, Amarachi claims credit for the work, leaving him fuming but silent. At home, Olumide vents his frustration to his best friend Adebayo, who encourages him to stand up to her. "You day let this girl ride you like Keika," Adebayo says with a mix of humor and seriousness. But Olumide shrugs, unwilling to cause trouble. Soon, Amarachi's bullying takes a physical turn. One day, as Olumide walks past her in the school hallway, she purposely trips him, causing his books to scatter. The students laugh and Amarachi smirks. "Watch where you're going, abeg," she says, feigning innocence. That evening, Olumide sketches her as a villain in his notebook, depicting her surrounded by storm clouds. Art becomes his refuge, allowing him to process the pain. Amarachi starts spreading rumors about Olumide being expelled from his previous school for stealing. She plants the story subtly, whispering to her clique, and letting it spread like wildfire. Olumide notices the side glances and hushed conversations. One day, during recess, a boy confronts him. "Is it true you stole something in your previous school? Where did you hear that?" Olumide is shocked. "It's the rumor going round." Olumide, caught off guard, shakes his head. He feels disturbed. At Adebayo's insistence, Olumide tries to stand up to Amarachi during a class debate. When Amarachi mocks his pronunciation of a word, Olumide fires back with a sharp comment about her always needing to be the center of attention. For a moment, the class falls silent, but Amarachi quickly regains control. "Look at this boy. He can't even speak English properly and he's talking to me." She laughs and the class erupts. Olumide feels the sting of failure but resolves to keep trying. During lunch, Amarachi spots Olumide eating jollof rice with a piece of boiled egg. She loudly remarks, "Ah, Olumide, is that what your village people eat? No meat, just egg? Don't worry. I'll send you small chicken from my father's farm." The room bursts into laughter, and Olumide fights back tears. Why does this girl's words hurt him so much? Later, Adebayo reminds him, "Her words only have power if you believe them. Ignore her." Olumide begins to find small victories. During a school-wide quiz competition, he excels in the literature round, earning applause from the audience. Amarachi feels the sting of losing to someone she deems inferior, but she hides it with a smug smile. Olumide's teacher, Mr. Balogun, notices his potential and encourages him to keep participating in academic events. This boosts Olumide's confidence, even as Amarachi plots her next move. One day, Olumide sat at the corner of the art room, his hand steady as he sketched delicate patterns on a half-finished piece. It was a portrait of his late sister, teeny-eye, her serene expression set against a background of vibrant flowers, a tribute to her memory and the comfort she found in gardening. Each line, each stroke was a labor of love, carefully crafted over weeks of quiet work. Across the room, Amarachi lounged with her friends, flipping through magazines and exchanging whispered jokes. Though she'd recently been ignoring Olumide, her attention drifted toward him now, her gaze narrowing as she watched his focus. "What's he doing now?" one of her friends whispered, glancing at Olumide. "Probably sketching stick figures," another said, snickering. Amarachi smirked. "Let's see how important his little doodles are." Pretending casual disinterest, Amarachi sauntered across the room, holding a cup of water she'd filled from the sink earlier. She glanced at Olumide's work as she approached, her eyes widening slightly at the intricate details. For a moment she hesitated, but her friends were watching. With a calculated stumble, Amarachi tipped the cup. Water cascaded over Olumide's drawing, the ink bleeding into the paper as dark smudges spread like bruises. "Oh no!" Amarachi exclaimed with mock concern. "Oops. My bad." Olumide froze, staring at his ruined work. The room went silent except for the muffled laughter from Amarachi's friends. "Guess you'll have to start over," Amarachi added with an insincere shrug before walking back to her group. "Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for doing that." For several moments Olumide couldn't move. The portrait, which had taken days of effort and carried so much personal meaning, was ruined. He carefully lifted the soggy paper, the vibrant colors now a chaotic mess. His hands trembled, but not with anger. Instead, it was a quiet, deep pain, one that Amarachi and her friends would never understand. "Are you okay?" a timid voice asked. It was Afe, another student who occasionally helped Olumide clean up after class. Olumide nodded, though his chest felt tight. "Yeah, I'll be fine." But as the school bell rang and the room emptied, Olumide stayed behind. Alone with the wreckage of his work, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The next day, Olumide returned to the art room with a blank sheet of paper and a sharpened pencil. He refused to let Amarachi's cruelty define his talent or extinguish his passion. He spent hours after school working on a new piece, pouring every ounce of his frustration, sadness, and love into it. This time, the portrait became more vivid, his sister's face brighter, her features more defined, surrounded by an explosion of wildflowers. When he was done, he stepped back and studied the finished work. It was better than the first attempt, more alive, more emotional, more real. A week later, Olumide's art teacher, Mrs. Olatunde, approached him after class. "Olumide," she said, holding up his new drawing which he had shown her in the morning. "This is breathtaking. I'm submitting it to the interschool art competition." Olumide blinked in surprise. "Are you sure, Ma?" "I'm more than sure," she said with a warm smile. "This has the potential to win. You've done something truly special here." Though nervous, Olumide nodded, grateful for the opportunity. The day the competition results were announced, the school's assembly hall buzzed with excitement. Students whispered and speculated, but Amarachi sat among her gang, pretending indifference. "And the winner of this year's interschool art competition is," the announcer said, dragging out the suspense, "Olumide Adeteyer." The hall erupted in applause. Olumide, seated near the back, hesitated before standing. He was shocked. Eventually, he walked to the stage, his heart pounding as he accepted the award, a certificate and a cash prize. "Your work was extraordinary," the announcer said. "A true testament to the power of perseverance and creativity." Amarachi's jaw tightened as she watched. She forced a smile when her friends nudged her, but the sight of Olumide basking in genuine applause stung more than she cared to admit. "That's nice for him," she said, her tone flat. "Who knew he had it in him?" one friend said, giggling. Amarachi didn't respond. Deep down, the recognition Olumide received stirred something uncomfortable in her. Part jealousy, part guilt, and part realization that his talent was undeniable. That evening, Olumide sat at his desk, staring at the award certificate. Winning the competition felt surreal, but it wasn't just about the recognition. For him, it was proof that he could rise above the pettiness and cruelty of others, that his art could transcend the pain of the past. Later, Amarachi sat alone in her room, scrolling through photos of Olumide holding his award on her phone. The envy gnawed at her, but so did something else, shame. She thought about the ruined drawing, the smirk on her face, and the look in Olumide's eyes as he saw his work destroyed. For the first time, she wondered if her actions had ever truly made her feel better, or if they had only masked her own insecurities. During a parent-teacher meeting, Olumide overhears Amarachi's mother scolding her for not topping her class. For a brief moment, Amarachi's confident facade cracks, and Olumide sees her as more than just a bully. This revelation plants the seed of understanding, though it doesn't change their dynamic immediately. Within a few days, Amarachi returns to her bully mode again. She orchestrates a prank during morning assembly. She arranges for someone to slip a fake love letter into Olumide's locker, supposedly from a popular girl in school. When Olumide reads it out, thinking it was a meaningful letter, every student around laughs at him. That night, Olumide tears up the letter and sketches a comic where he triumphs over his tormentors. It becomes his way of reclaiming power. Despite the constant bullying, Olumide begins to focus on his academics and art. His resilience becomes evident as he refuses to let Amarachi's actions define him. Teachers and classmates start to notice his talents, which further fuels Amarachi's envy. During a chemistry practical, Amarachi accidentally spills acid on her uniform. While others hesitate, Olumide quickly hands her water to rinse the affected area. Amarachi is taken aback but brushes it off with a sarcastic comment. This moment is a subtle turning point, showing that Olumide's kindness remains intact despite everything. However, bullying reaches its peak when Amarachi tampers with Olumide's presentation during a science fair, causing him to stumble in front of judges. However, his quick thinking saves the day, earning him second place. Amarachi's friends begin to question her motives. "Why do you hate him so much?" one asks. This forces Amarachi to confront her own insecurities, though she isn't ready to admit them. Meanwhile, Olumide's quiet determination inspires Adebayo to pursue his own dream of producing music, solidifying their friendship. One afternoon, the rain poured relentlessly over Lagos, turning the usually busy city streets into a chaotic maze of honking cars and flooded sidewalks. Amarachi had ducked into one of the city's upscale malls to escape the downpour. She had been on her way to a meeting, but with the rain, she decided to take cover by wandering through the sleek shops, her heels clicking against the polished floors. Unknown to her, Olumide was also in the mall, browsing the modest book section. He had come to pick up supplies for the community center, hoping to find a few affordable art books for the kids. Their paths might have never crossed that day if not for the sound that shattered the ordinary hum of the mall gunshots. The air filled with screams as masked men stormed the entrance. Shoppers scrambled for cover, overturning displays and abandoning shopping bags in their panic. Amarachi, standing near a boutique section, froze as one of the robbers barked orders, waving his gun. Her heart pounded as she pressed herself against a wall, her mind racing but her body unable to move. She had never been this close to danger before. It was something that happened in news reports, not in her carefully curated world. Olumide, crouched behind a shelf in the bookstore, saw her almost immediately as the bookstore was close to the boutique section. He cursed under his breath. Of all the people to be stuck with, but when he saw her pale face and trembling hands, he knew she was paralyzed with fear. The robbers were moving swiftly, their loud commands filling the air. One of them shouted for everyone to lie flat on the ground. Most complied, but Amarachi remained rooted in place, her breathing shallow and her legs like stone. Without thinking, Olumide moved. Keeping low, he darted from the bookstore toward her. He reached her just as one of the robbers turned in their direction. "Get down!" Olumide hissed, grabbing her arm and pulling her to the floor. The motion snapped Amarachi out of her stupor, but the danger was far from over. One of the robbers spotted their movement and yelled, aiming his weapon. Olumide didn't hesitate. "Stay here," he whispered urgently before dashing to the side, drawing attention away from her. The robber fired, and more chaos erupted. Olumide staggered, clutching his side as blood began to stain his shirt, but he managed to crawl behind a kiosk. Amarachi's breath caught in her throat as she saw him collapse. She wanted to scream, to run to him, but fear rooted her to the spot. Minutes felt like hours, but eventually the robbers fled, their bags full of stolen cash and valuables. Security guards and police swarmed the mall, helping the injured and calming the panicked crowd. Amarachi rushed to Olumide, who was slumped against the kiosk, His face pale but his eyes still sharp. You idiot!" she exclaimed, tears streaming down her face. "Why did you do that?" Olumide smirked weakly, wincing as he spoke. "Couldn't let you freeze there. Would have been a shame if something happened to Lagos Princess." His words stung, but Amarachi couldn't deny the truth behind them. She had been helpless, completely at the mercy of the situation, while Olumide had risked everything to protect her. When paramedics arrived, Amarachi insisted on riding with him to the hospital. She didn't know why. Maybe it was guilt, or perhaps it was something deeper that she couldn't yet name. At the hospital, Amarachi waited anxiously outside the emergency room. Her hands trembled as she replayed the events in her mind. For the first time she saw Olumide not as the boy she used to torment, but as a person, someone brave, selfless, and so much stronger than she had ever given him credit for. When the doctor finally emerged, she breathed a sigh of relief. "He'll be fine," the doctor said. "The bullet grazed his side but didn't hit anything major. He needs rest, though." Amarachi nodded and stepped into his room. Olumide was lying on the bed, his eyes half closed. "Still here," he mumbled, his voice weak but teasing. Of course I'm still here," Amarachi snapped, though her voice softened. "You saved my life." Olumide gave a small smile. "Don't mention it. Literally don't. I don't need you telling everyone I'm a hero now." For the first time Amarachi laughed, though it was tinged with tears. She sat beside him, her usual walls crumbling. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I mean it." Olumide looked at her, and for a moment, there was no animosity between them, only a fragile understanding. The incident left a lasting impact on Amarachi. She couldn't stop thinking about how Olumide had put himself in harm's way without hesitation. It wasn't just an act of bravery. It was a reflection of his character, a reminder of the resilience and kindness she had once ignored in him. "You owe him a serious apology, Adora." Her cousin who knew about Olumide and how Amarachi had always treated him told her firmly. "He saved your life. You could have been shot by the robbers," she added. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Do you think Amarachi will truly change? Let's see how her relationship with Olumide goes in part 2.